When were the four Gospels in the New Testament written?
Yeah, and what I'm saying is take us through some of these doctrinal summaries that we find in the scriptures, and let's set this up. We're not just saying, okay, we believe the Bible is the inspired and inerrant word of God, so therefore believe it. We're simply saying that what we're going to show you, these historical letters, books, and so on, are the earliest historical sources that we have of anything that was happening among the early Christians.
And that is something that virtually everybody agrees about. In other words, the material that we have in the New Testament are our earliest sources. Now, some people will say they're among our earliest sources because other people will bring in things like the Gospel of Thomas and other types of things alongside of it, and they'll say they're a part of this period too. That actually is debated. But the point here is that we've got a gap, 20 years on the front end for the early epistles of Paul, all the way out to John's Gospel, written somewhere in the 90s. So look, we're 60 years down the road now. And the Gospels of themselves are put somewhere between the 60s and the 90s. Other people put them 80s and 90s. So you're talking anywhere from 30 to 50, 60 years for the gospel material about Jesus. And the argument is, look at that gap. Look at what can happen in there. And what we're suggesting is that these sources actually roll back to experiences on top of the events themselves. Don't confuse the date of the writings for the content of the origins of the theology that is expressed.
Yeah.
Because Paul's conversion can't happen to the things that he affirms without a very high Christology from the very beginning. And so these events are right on top of themselves. And we have summaries that teach this. We have summaries like 1 Corinthians 15 that you mentioned. We have summaries like Romans 1, verses 1 to 4.
Let me put up a couple of these. But what I want to say is these are our earliest sources, whether you're a skeptic or you're a Christian. The fact, this is as far back as you can go in terms of evidence.
That's exactly right. If you want to know what people were doing and saying, this is all the evidence that we have. Now, the skeptic will come along and say, there was other stuff going on. There were people believing other things at this time, but what they can't produce are any sources that show it.
Yeah, and what we want to do is use this information, this evidence, to say, at that time, that short period, after 20 years, what did the early Christians themselves say? Okay? I mean, you know, if we're going to have a gap of 20 years, let's find out at 20 years, where were we at?
And the closest thing we can get to what's going on around the church and what the church is contending with are the voices of contention that we see within these documents themselves. So we can't go anywhere for any of this conversation except to these documents.